I think we'll call our meeting to order. I understand that our recording folks are ready to go. I would note that Rabbi Johanna is not present. He had a conflict, and Dr. Miriam is not present either. She had a conflict that was a long-standing one, and I think she's in Europe, but has promised to attend everybody.
I just got a message. Please, I'm sitting in traffic on the Burnside Bridge, and Vanessa can't make it out of work till 6. Please inform the chair. I don't know who it's from. I'm sorry.
Vanessa, is that what you said?
Oh, maybe that's it.
Okay. 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 Philip?
Yes. First, I would like to say, just a friendly reminder for the interpreter's sake, everyone speak one at a time, please, and utilize your gavels, and so everything will go a lot smoother. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that covers the ground rules. We have a lot of process here, but I think it is important that we understand that when you have recordings and when we try to summarize what occurred here, you can't have anybody talking over the other person. And so I think, Mr. Wolf, I thank you for your observation completely. We have these housekeeping issues, but there's so much process here, and there have been so many discussions going back and forth about a variety of things. I've tried to make some order in my head about how we might approach this in the most efficient manner. And it struck me that one way to do this is if there was a motion to change the agenda somewhat, and perhaps that might be the way to go. James?
Yeah, what I would like to propose is that the agenda be amended so that we can start with a discussion and also the appointments of the executive committee, because I think the appointments of the and structure or establishing the executive committee will resolve a lot of the outstanding questions and the conversations that's happened over the last couple weeks. So that's my proposal on the table, is that we start with that.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Can you please repeat what you said the last, I didn't hear what you said?
So basically, I'm proposing that we modify the agenda to start with the appointment of, or establishing the executive committee and the things that would follow with that, which is perhaps establishing the actual chair and the vice chair, the structure of it, because I think that the discussions that's happened over at least email over the last couple of weeks, a lot of those issues will be resolved by at least getting started with that structure in place.
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Wolf is seconded. Any discussion about that motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask, we just go around the table and vote on the motion. So we start with the members of the COAB around the table. If you're a member of the COAB, I'm starting this direction. Vote. Yeah. You vote aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, so are there any nays and would be necessary? So having that, the motion passes, so we'll start with the executive committee. Yes, Dr. Silver.
I'd like to nominate 5 people for the executive committee.
And let me say this, I believe that is a COAB function completely for your determination of the executive committee. And so I'd like to ask if Bud would run this part of the meeting for us. Okay, and I think that would be good to have a COAB member do that. Bud's agreed to do that. So you're in charge now.
Well, thank you, Paul. I've been very outspoken, I think, about the importance of having a steering committee in place by the time we leave this meeting tonight. And I think as punishment, Paul is suggesting that I run this part of the meeting. So, indeed. That said, yes? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's Rochelle.
Go ahead. Yes.
I would like to nominate 5 people for the executive committee.
Absolutely. Do you mind, Rochelle, if we start by talking about, and I think it was the idea that you presented, about the makeup of the steering committee, and then we'll certainly talk about the members after that. Is that okay?
Yes.
So, and again, I think Rochelle was kind enough to suggest this, and it is the common way that we organize steering committees. We say, who are the stakeholders? Who are the most impacted groups? Who are the ones who have helped, in this case, make sure that we have a COAB, and they have what we call skin in the game. And then we say, let's put them together in a committee, and they can help lead us, guide us, help get us through rough patches when we have issues where we need help, and many other things. So without going too deeply into that, again, Rochelle had suggested, and correct me, Rochelle, if I get this wrong, that we have a steering committee that has a member from of the COAB who was put in place by the selection committee, that we have a member of the COAB who was put in place by the Human Rights Commission and Disability Committee, that we have a member who was put in place by the city commissioner's appointment, that we have one alternate, and I think that was the organization that you had suggested. Is that right, Rochelle?
And one police officer, I said, but I got a lot of bad feedback about that.
So we have maybe 2 alternatives. One is what I had just said with a police officer, and one is what I just said without a police officer. So that said, are there any other organizations that anyone else would like to put on the table before we try to vote on what the right group would be? And I'm sorry, I can't see signs, so I'm just going to point.
Avell Gordley, clarification, please, Rochelle. Are you recommending in that makeup that it be inclusive of a person who may have been named as an alternate
Yes.
to the COAB?
Yes.
Inclusive of an alternate. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question or any other suggestions? Go ahead,
Sorry.
Paul.
I don't necessarily, since I retired, like to put on my legal hat, but I'm wanting to bring up the subject because I think part of our discussion has been the absence of sort of the things that would fill in. For example, have an executive committee, but there's nothing in the settlement agreement about who's on it. In terms of qualifications, we have the whole question about what is the role of alternates here. That I think that ought to be part of the discussion I'm hoping that people would have in terms of trying to understand what the intent of the settlement agreement is. I don't have a vote. All I'm doing is trying to advise people that there's a way we have to fill in these details about this, and so I hope that might provoke some discussion along the way.
Is there anyone else? Philip?
Yes, I just wanted to again ask that you have a friendly reminder of the COAB group that we're independent from city public works and all of this, and so we are able to develop what we need to run this and what we need to. I feel like we should separate from the city in more ways as we go forward in this committee.
Thank you, Philip.
Bud?
Rochelle?
There was a lot of email going back and forth this weekend, and it appeared to me that most people were in favor of including the alternates to be potential members of the executive committee. And if that isn't true, if people don't feel that way, maybe they need to say that directly.
But I have
Go ahead.
So for the role of alternate as I am, I saw my name partnered in one of those emails. And so I would just like to have a clear understanding as we talk about what the alternates are to do and being on committees, if that's a possibility.
Well, I think we're going to focus on the executive committee here, or the steering committee. I'm sorry, I got to stop using that executive word. And I don't know as far as the other committees, I think it's allowed for in the settlement agreement, but that's something we're going to have to figure out.
Okay.
I think our steering committee, one of the first things they're going to have to do is figure out what is our charter, what are we here to do, what are our responsibilities. And so, that said, there's still questions that are out there. I think right now the key thing is to just decide who is this, and then let them spend that significant piece of work developing that charter and bringing it back to us for agreement. It's going to be a lot of work. That said, if you don't have that 8 to 20 hours a week for the next 6 weeks to do this kind of work, you may not want to get engaged in the steering committee. It's going to be a lot of work. That said, again, I think, Rochelle, I haven't heard anyone object to the idea of alternates serving on the steering committee. If anyone has such an objection, please raise it now.
You have some people who wish to speak, though.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see.
And maybe this needs a motion, you'll let me know, but if you want a motion on this, but I think for the purposes of the executive committee and frankly, all of the subcommittees, there should be no distinguishing the regular members versus the alternates. We are one group, and our alternates are partners. We are equal. I recognize definitely that alternates don't have voting power, unfortunately, but the reality is that for the purposes of the committees and subcommittees, there should be no distinguishing, so we just need to move forward. We have a lot of talent and opportunity here, and we don't want to alienate anyone.
Would you like to raise that to a vote right now?
We have another question, Bud.
I'm sorry.
So my question is, can we go through the list of the voting 15 to see who were nominated by which groups, so that we're clear? So, because I'm not really sure, and in my analyzation of that, I'm just not sure. So I would like for us to go through to say how they were selected, please. So which group they came from, whether they're commissioner selection,
Right.
human rights, that type of thing.
Right. Can we, let's, just as sort of point of order, let's try and resolve the question of alternates. Then we'll talk about, do we agree to what Rochelle has suggested on the organization of the steering committee and whether police should be on that board. And then I think, exactly as you said, that's exactly what we need to do next, is talk about who is associated with those different groups and who are people who would volunteer to do this work. So I want to come back to you and ask that question. Do we want to raise that question about the alternates to a vote? Because I think it would be a quick and easy vote.
Yes, but I would like to comment just on what Sharon Maxwell just had raised, which is this is public information about who was selected and who they were supported by and who they're associated with. So I don't think that that is productive to then, when we're already appointed, to go through and talk about that. We should all be well informed about who we're associated with. But I make a motion that we recognize the alternates for the purposes of the executive committee and subcommittees as equals in terms of appointment.
Second.
So I guess following Paul's lead, I'll start with Corey to my left, and we'll just have the voting members.
Any discussion on the motion?
Okay.
And Senator Gordley's asked.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Before we go further, I think it would be appropriate to hear from the city attorney. The city attorney had a significant role in crafting the settlement agreement that has us all sitting around the table. And I think we need to hear something about the legality of where we are now and and help us with the decisions that we're trying to make as we go forward.
Do we have someone from the city
She's here,
attorney?
bud.
Ah, go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Ellen Osanak from the City Attorney's Office, and Bill Williams is also here from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we were both, have been part of both crafting the agreement and also helping various parties interpret its terms. And so in that regard, I was asked about this question of alternate members and what their legal status is under the agreement. So in terms of the Community Oversight Advisory Board, the COAB, the agreement is your charter, much like the city charter. So it defines how the actions that you're authorized to take. So when you're looking at what your powers are or your authority is, you should look to the settlement agreement. So it's kind of like, the United States is a government of enumerated powers. And so the COAB, you are a body of enumerated powers. So what the agreement says is that your membership consists of 15 voting members and 5 advisory members. So in terms of your actual membership, you are a body of 20 members. And the agreement doesn't authorize you to add to that membership. It doesn't mean that the way that you constitute yourselves in terms of an executive committee or subcommittees, that you cannot have alternate members or other members of the public. For example, there were over 100 people that applied for the positions that the selection committee designated alternates for. So there's no reason why you couldn't invite those people to participate in a public way in your deliberations. But in terms of actually having your alternate members, or these alternates that are here be the membership of the COAB, the settlement agreement doesn't authorize you to appoint additional members to your body. So particularly in terms of the executive committee, you cannot have your alternates actually serve as your executive committee. The membership is required to exercise its authority through the members, which are the 20 members that the settlement agreement. And then of course there's the additional requirement that where the body is required to vote, that there are only 15 of you that are authorized to vote. So that is the information I have for you, and I'm happy to either answer questions or however you want to do it. So.
But Ms. Jameson has a question.
Oh, go right ahead.
So thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Senator Gordley, for that, getting Ellen involved and getting this opinion. The reality is that I think that having a discussion around the purpose of alternates is really critical, because I was one of the originators of advancing the idea of alternates, and my purpose of that was about accommodations that recognize the ADA. I am here as a representative of a person with lived experience of mental illness, and I need accommodation, and alternates address that. And so what essentially you're saying, I mean, I don't want to, we want to parse the legality, but I think alternates were here to be a support in the need of persons that may need an ADA accommodation, and we did this proactively. So what I'm hearing you're saying is that the city does not recognize persons with disabilities in this process, and so I would need you to address that, and very clearly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you being really direct about asking if the city is not willing to provide accommodations in the form of alternates for people who are requesting or need that kind of accommodation? Because the answer is absolutely not. The city and the agreement, but the city is absolutely committed to that. The difference is that in terms of actually having an alternate be a permanent member of the committee, that's what is prohibited by the agreement. But for example, if you or anybody else needed to request an accommodation and wanted to designate an alternate, you certainly could do that, and you can even specify that in your bylaws. But in terms of permanent membership, which is what I understood the purpose of the executive committee to be, which was to be a sub-body of the larger group, you could not, for example, appoint an alternate in that role, but they can certainly fulfill it as an accommodation should somebody request it.
So Tom's been.
Bud, you want me to help?
Yes, please.
Okay, Tom had his hand up.
I've looked pretty carefully at the settlement agreement, and it is vague beyond expectations throughout. But there is nothing in disagreement with Ellen that suggests that the COAB, with its independence, can't determine who will serve on its committees, whatever the committees that it decides it may want to set up. Ellen's correct in terms of the distinction between adding voting members. So I don't disagree with her when she suggests that there couldn't be a voting member added, either from the ranks of an alternate or otherwise, for purposes of full COAB votes. But in terms of service on committees, there's nothing, in my opinion, to prohibit whatever the COAB wants to do in terms of appointments of people or selections of people, either alternates or otherwise, to any of the committees.
So, thanks for coming, Ellen. I appreciate your time. I want to be abundantly clear. So, if I was having a rough day or whatever, and I wanted an alternate to take my place and to have my voting rights, could I say, hey, would you take my place and vote for me for this day? Is that acceptable?
Yes, I believe that is acceptable.
Okay. Thank you.
So do we have any more discussion
Yes.
on the question? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Bud. Question, Ellen. Do we have the option of calling the executive committee a steering committee? And then, with that name, adding alternate participation?
I think it mainly depends on the purpose of what you want the steering committee to be. And as I understood from reading the bylaws, the purpose of the executive committee was
For
that committee to be able to take certain actions on behalf of the whole body.
Right, right.
And so if it's a steering committee that's serving the same purpose, then I would say no, you have to have the members of the body taking action on behalf of the body. And that's the problem with having an alternate, somebody that is not a member of the body taking action on its behalf.
As a point of order, before we go on, we've heard from Ellen, we've heard from Tom, different viewpoints on the legality of this. We had a motion to come to a vote on the use of alternates. So we're still going to have that vote as a COAB. We're still going to make that decision together. If there's any more discussion on that topic, let's have that and let's have the vote. I saw one over here first, but maybe, okay, Corey, go ahead.
I'd like to amend the motion on the floor to separate the question between alternate serving on the subcommittees and alternate serving on the executive committee. I think that we might be able to get a little bit more focus on the discussion around the executive committee if we have a consensus already around the subcommittees. So I'd like to split it so maybe we can move forward a little bit if that's okay with everybody else.
Just so I understand you, you're suggesting that we make a decision on whether alternates can serve on committees in general?
Right.
Okay. Which I think is in line with what you were suggesting. Go ahead.
So I would like to hear, and if it needs a motion, I'm fine with that, the Department of Justice representative to comment on the fidelity of Ellen Osanak, the city attorney's statements, so we know we have a clear place to move forward.
Yeah, hi, Bill Williams. Thanks for the question. I can't comment on Ellen's fidelity to answering the question. I can tell you that I'm in agreement with what she said, but she is an expert on law that would fall under the city. Okay, so I'm
You're an expert on the settlement agreement.
right. So
Which is the intent and what we want to be a
Right.
part of, you know, in fidelity with the intent and the spirit.
Okay, so I'm in agreement with Ellen's statements about what the settlement agreement says. You've got the document. It says what it says. We operate within the confines of the language of the settlement agreement. I would like Ellen to comment a little further on this because the statement was made, and I don't remember who made it, but I think a statement was made early on that this isn't a public body. And I think we should hear from Ellen on that statement, because I don't think that's correct, but.
Address that. So, you all have had so much work on your plate, and I, the city, and we appreciate it. And so I am your attorney under the settlement agreement to help advise you all about public meetings and public records law. And so I know we haven't had an opportunity really for you all to get training on that or to even ask questions about that. So the short answer is you all are a public body that is subject to the public meetings law. And that is because you all are constituted as an advisory body to the city and to the Department of Justice. And so the public meetings law, Oregon is very robust and it's a sunshine state, and so your deliberations and your decision making needs to occur in the context of a public meeting. So in terms of that just has implications for the way that you all communicate, particularly via email. So I know there's been a lot of discussion, and it's very for some people efficient to have discussions via email. For other people, they prefer face-to-face interactions. But the public meetings law actually requires you all to have your deliberations in public. And so there are problems when you communicate and send emails to the entire group. And that's something as we move along, it's not the end of the world, but you as public actors now, and because you're subject to the law, that's why you have an attorney to advise you, because if you were to get sued, the city would represent you. And so that's why it's helpful to have that kind of advice, and that's why I'm here to help you as you go along, not to scare you, but as we go along. I think it'll be helpful because there are rules about your ability to communicate outside of the public's purview.
I have a question. So what's the best way to communicate with you? Because I've emailed you with no response, and then now I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go through the community liaison to communicate with you, and that was back at the first week of February.
Yeah.
Because I've had a list of questions, and now it's gotten bigger, so I would like to figure out how I can expedite that process, at least between you and I, or to figure out how we're communicating, because it's frustrating, and it feels a bit bottlenecking.
Yeah, I absolutely, I know you all have a packed agenda, so.
I'm sorry?
I know you have a packed agenda, and I don't want to talk about it.
But it's an
concern
important
note.
question, right,
Yes.
to suss out.
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
And at this point, I want to interrupt and try to bring us back to the topic at hand. That's an issue, and maybe one that the steering committee would help with once we have that decided. So I want to come back to the suggestion that was on the table. We've heard advice from various parties. Let's, as a COAB, try to take the vote on whether or not we're going to have the named alternates on the steering committee. And I think we should take this advice in mind and just have our vote. I'm going to start with Corey and move.
All right.
Oh, sorry, Philip.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I understand it's an important process and it's time sensitive, I am aware, but I do want to clarify, whatever the co-op decides, whoever's involved in the steering committee, but because we don't have bylaws set yet, does that mean that if we decide an alternate can be involved in the steering committee, and then we change and set the bylaws up, does that mean, but we haven't set them up yet, so will that change as that goes forward?
I can't hear you. Yeah, very good.
Sorry. So it was a question relating to the alternates being part of the steering committee. And it really depends on what our bylaws say, because we haven't set the bylaws yet. So it's really, I mean, it could change. It depends on what it says in the bylaws. Isn't that correct?
Senator Gordley has her paddle up.
Thank you. Dennis Rosenbaum, would you please weigh in here? Do you have any information that would help us figure out what we're doing and where we need to go next? Thank you.
Not really. I mean, I think that, I think of legitimacy in the end, that this group has to be legitimate in Portland, and its power, its authority, and I wouldn't want us to do anything that was, questionable on that regard, but, you guys have to decide what you want to do. My view of alternates, just in general, having been on lots of different committees, is they're alternates. When other people are not available, they speak up and they take their role. But you guys have a more inclusive idea here, that's fine. I mean, but I would worry about what the city has said and whether that's necessary. I mean, my feeling, it's just an opinion. I have nothing but an opinion here, that I would be inclined to have the alternates on these other committees, but not on the one that's acting on behalf of the whole body. But, you guys have to decide if that's what you want to do.
But
Go ahead.
I just wanted to answer Mr. Wolf's question so we could move forward, that those bylaws could be amended. That's kind of why we did this in this order. So if that vote were to happen, then the bylaws could easily be amended.
Okay.
That's my legal opinion.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Okay, do we have any more discussion before the vote? Okay, starting to my left.
So,
Go ahead, Corey.
I propose we close the discussion.
Oh, thank you. So with that, what we're voting on again is, will we have alternates allowed to be on what we're calling the steering committee? So with that, just aye or nay, starting at my left. Corey?
okay, so point of order, is our governing rules at the moment currently Robert's rules? So then for point of order, there was a motion to bring to a vote on whether or not we would include them both. And then I made a motion, which hasn't been seconded yet, to split the two. So,
You can't make a motion when there's one on the floor, you gotta get rid of the first one first.
not unless you're making a motion to amend that first motion. So that's what I
I'm gonna
did.
withdraw the first motion, and then you can go on.
Okay, well then I have to withdraw my motion and then remove that we have that vote, but it will be on two questions. One for the subcommittees and one for the, what we're calling executive or steering committee. And that would need a second also.
So I hear you asking us to make two votes,
Right.
one on whether we'll include alternates in committees in general, and one on whether we will include alternates in the steering committee. Does anyone second that?
I second it.
Okay, seconded, so we need to vote. Let's start with the vote on whether we will include alternates in committees in general, starting with Corey and moving to the left.
Aye.
I need a minute. Can you come back to me? I'm still processing.
I'm an alternate, so I don't vote.
And I say yes.
Aye.
Yes?
Alternate.
Aye.
Aye.
Advisory.
Aye.
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 That's okay. And aye, so we have a majority, so that motion has passed. And just as another point of order, who's recording these votes and their results?
The camera.
Okay. Okay, good enough. All right, so second vote is, shall we include the alternates in the steering committee? Starting from my left, Corey.
I abstain.
I abstain.
I'm an alternate, so no vote.
Nay.
Aye. No vote.
No.
Alternate.
No.
Hey, could you repeat the question again?
The question is, are we going to allow alternates to serve on the steering committee?
Oh, okay, aye.
I need a minute.
Alternate.
I can't vote for something illegal, so no.
No, it's about legitimacy, I guess. It's about legitimacy of, if you will. I'd say no.
No.
No, and I'll vote no as well, so with 2 yea votes, that motion does not carry. So that said, now we have to figure out who goes onto the steering committee somehow. There was a motion introduced to please clarify of the groups that we've named, who are the members on the COAB who represent those groups. I don't know if we have that written in this packet or if there's someone here, whether Judith can call that out for us, or is there someone?
You have Christie's, you see Christie's thing up, I just wanna be sure whether it's.
Boy, you can look at this one here,
Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion that we table the appointment of the executive committee in the absence of a clear leadership plan for the next meeting.
In absence of what?
In the absence of a clear leadership plan for our next formal meeting, which I believe is April 2nd.
Can we talk about I have a quick question. So, can you say what you just said again? Because I had a question, but I'm thinking so fast right now. Can you slow it down a little bit so I can process it?
I made a motion
Uh-huh.
to table the appointment of the executive committee in the absence of clear leadership to our next formal meeting, which is April 2nd.
April 2nd.
Yes.
So, okay, so here's my question, or my concern, okay? Are we going to be able to meet as a group and get that, pardon the expression, hammered out between now and then? Because I'd like to get my wheels on the ground. Because I've been doing a lot and I need some sort of structure here to put all of my work into so far. And I feel like it's critical that we establish some form, even if it's an interim leadership sort of structure that can be dissolved, and we can figure out over time how we want to do it, because I feel like we're spending an inordinate amount of time on it. So, could you suss out the question in there?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't-
certainly. I think that you've offered a motion, a secondary motion.
No, I'm trying
and I
to talk
think-
about it with you.
Right, and I would say that my response is, I'm going to stand by my motion. Doesn't mean that it's going to be seconded. I mean, you can squash it, it's really not, so that's fine, but it was just something offered. We can move forward and have a vote.
Sharon?
Can we open it for discussion so I can make a comment?
It has to be seconded first.
Oh, it has to be seconded.
Is there anyone who seconds the suggestion? I'm sorry, I don't hear the suggestion being seconded, so we'll have to move on. Go ahead. What?
Something you want to talk about? I'll second it. You want to speak on something? Oh.
No, that's okay.
Hey, I was trying to back, Sharon, sorry.
Yeah, I know, no. You're good.
no power here.
So, that said, you had asked about, Sharon, you had asked about who belonged to these various commissions, et cetera. Is there any, Dr. Rosenbaum?
One quick comment to respond to what Bea is saying. Well, hopefully tonight we'll get to the 3 subcommittees or however many you want, and we can then, that'll be one way to channel some energy.
Okay, so, do we have something in a list that's going to answer that question as to, because if we don't, then we're just gonna have to figure out another way to do it. Doesn't sound like we have a list, so who do we?
A list for subcommittees?
So Sharon had been asking, of these different groups, such as the Human Rights Commission or Disability Commission, those who were selected by the selection committee, those who were selected by the city commissioners. Who are those people? Who are those candidates for the steering committee?
Well, I have a list here from paperwork that you gave us some time ago. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
PCD, well, it says Portland Commissioner of Disability and Human Rights Commission, each appointed a commissioner as well as an alternate. PCOD Commissioner Christina Jameson, HRC Commissioner Emmanuel Price, PCOD Commissioner Philip Wolf was an alternate. And then it goes, the HRC jointly selected 3 COAB appointees plus 1 alternate from applicants who self-identified as qualified mental health professionals, as people with 10 years lived experience caring of their own or others' mental illness. V, right?
What?
Riviere, that's your last name, correct?
Riviere, yeah.
Catherine, could you speak up?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Catherine Gardner, Bud Fulis, Joshua Robinson was the alternate, correct? And a selection committee chaired by the state representative Lou Fredericks with representatives from a dozen community organizations appointed 5 COAB members and 3 alternates from 128 applicants. Corey L. Murphy, Vanessa Gonzalez, Ms. Gonzalez is right there. Sharon Maxwell, across the room. Jimmy Johnson, Ron Steenson's the alternate. Aqueta Lanford is the alternate. Miraye Medina is the 3rd alternate. The mayor and city commissioners appointed a COAB member. Charlie Hales appointed Alicia Moreland. Commissioner Nick Fish appointed Evel Gordley, Senator Gordley. Commissioner Amanda Fritz appointed Rochelle Silver, sitting next to me. Commissioner Steve Novick appointed Sharon E. Miran. And Commissioner Dan Salzman appointed Rabbi Michael Kahane. So that's the list.
So what I'd like to suggest is we've named 3 different groups that we feel need to have representation on the steering committee. We have a list of who are on those groups, but we need to know which of those people will volunteer because this is a substantial commitment of their time and effort. So I'm just going to go through this list and ask who will volunteer or who is nominated, and then we can go to a vote if we have more than one person nominated. Does everyone agree with that process? Thank you. Okay, well, barring any further discussion, so the members who were elected by the selection commission, of you, who would volunteer to do this work, or who would be nominated to do this work?
I nominate myself.
Okay, Sharon, anyone else?
Was I nominated? Is that the list he's just talking about? I love being confused.
You're not on that group.
I'm not on
Right.
that group?
No.
Where is that group from? Who
That's the
produced that?
selection committee.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I nominate Christy Jameson.
So we have Sharon and Christie so far. Any others?
Shabri Vickers should be one of the Human Rights Commissioners as an alternate. I don't know who's on that list, but she will be that person.
Is she an alternate or a full member?
she'll be an alternate. I'm from the HRC, a full member, and then she will serve as the alternate. She's not here at the moment, but she will be the alternate for Human Rights Commission.
Okay, since we just voted that alternates cannot serve, where they can stand in for you, if you wanted to do that, I think it would be you saying that you would like to serve with her as your alternate. Does that make sense?
That does, and I think I got confused with all of the motions and
Yes.
So thank you for clarifying.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I can't see your board, your name.
Emmanuel Price.
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel goofy now. Okay, Emmanuel. So we have three names. We have Sharon Maxwell, we have Christy Jameson, and we have Emmanuel Price. Are there any others from the selection committee that we should be considering? As a point of order, I think there are people around this table who know Robert's rules much better than I. So we have three candidates. How do we normally go about this at this point, the vote? Go ahead, Corey.
The suggestion I would take is that you go group by group with the number of persons who have put their name forward, and then you can do either a round robin with each name, or you could just say, you can go around the room with the voting members and ask them to vote for who they would want to do. That could be public. I don't know if public meeting laws allow for a private vote, I think. So
Yeah.
you would have to, I think you'd have to do a round robin for each category.
Does anyone else have any feedback on how we vote this?
I have just a clarification question. So is this just to serve on the steering committee, or is it for chair, vice chair? We haven't talked about how the structure will work, so I'm not sure what my name is being advanced for exactly.
We're talking about who will serve, and then the steering committee will have to figure out its charter after we name those people who serve. So that's an answer that'll be forthcoming after. Okay, so I've heard the suggestion that we just go around the table and each COAB member would.
Mr. Sub-Chair,
Go ahead.
two of the names you have are from the Commission on Disabilities and Human Rights Commission and not from the community group's appointments.
Oh.
Thank you. Christy and Emmanuel are from the Human Rights Commission list.
So Sharon is really the only member who's been named was submitted by the selection committee so far. So,
May I clarify? I take my name off that list. I'm fine with being a regular COAB member. When I said that Shabri Vickers would be an alternate, I was still confused at that whole process of emotions and who's going on and who's not going on. So let me take my name off of that and just continue to be represent the HRC as a COAB member. It's more clear for me, and moving forward, I can kind of relay this message back to the Human Rights Commission.
thank you. Okay, so we have Sharon Maxwell on the table for the selection commission. Is there anyone else who was appointed by the selection commission that needs to be considered? All right, I see no further hands. So that said, let's just go around the table, aye or nay on.
Why don't we get all the candidates from the other two groups while we're at it? So we know who is up.
I just thought it would be easier to vote this way.
How can you vote on some people if you don't know who else is going to be?
So I think what the suggestion was that we would go group by group. So if there were more than one person in a particular category, then we can make a decision in each one. I don't know that, I mean, this is assuming that the body has given consensus to the idea that we're going to have one person from each group or a certain number of people from each group. I don't know what that number is because that hasn't really been enumerated yet, but right now it looks like the process really only is clarifying people who are who are interested in serving, not necessarily how many folks are going to be in each group.
Senator Gordon.
Yes, my feeling at this point in our meeting, and we're a little over an hour into a 3-hour meeting, is that we are approaching the proposed agenda out of order. The discussion is now feeling like it's very out of order to me. I would like to suggest that we table the executive committee selection and go back and have the discussion about bylaws, so that the bylaws, our understanding of the bylaws, then informs how we wish to structure or people a executive committee.
So she had her hand up, but you just had a motion of a second, so.
You made a motion,
Right.
correct?
Yes,
Never
I have.
seconded.
And you seconded it, so
So
I think,
now we're in discussion.
okay.
Then there's a hand right here.
Can I?
Vianney, go ahead.
Can I volunteer myself for the steering committee? Or are we not doing that?
We're right now discussing the motion to table
Move back to the agenda.
the steering committee and move back to the agenda. So any discussion on that topic? Paul?
Well, I was gonna suggest maybe that would be appropriate for me to handle that, then if that's what the motion is. then we
It
would-
is.
So there's been a motion and seconded by Senator Gordley that we, for right now, I'm sorry, and by Dr. Moore, I'm sorry, that we, for right now, we table the discussion about the makeup of the executive committee, and that we return to the agenda and take up the matter of the COAB bylaws. Is there any discussion? Okay.
I just have a comment. So I thought what we were doing was really trying to get the steering committee in place so that we can discuss the bylaws by having the steering committee be the lead on the bylaw discussion. Was that what we initiated at the very beginning?
Let me offer just a part of the discussion. I wrote a note to myself here that I agree with Senator Gordley, although I'm not a voting person, but to move us along, you could, it's a suggestion, if someone wanted to move, create an ad hoc committee here to create a leadership plan for the steering committee. And so then you could move off that, and we could get the bylaws pretty well squared away subject to that. But that's just a suggestion. And if nobody wants to do that, then is there any further discussion on the motion?
Without sounding, I guess, critical, it's a little confusing. Okay.
All right, so we'll call for the question. Is somebody call for the question? So we can vote?
I'll call for the question.
All right. So we then need to vote on that motion to table the discussion of the executive committee makeup and return to the agenda focusing on the COAB bylaws. So we'll go around the table. The voting members of the COAB signify either aye or nay.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think there was maybe 2 nays, but the majority carries. So that issue is tabled, and we go to the bylaws. And you all have drafts of the bylaws. Let me start the discussion by asking, I'll entertain a motion. I think that's the way to get to these bylaws. Somebody has to bring a motion here.
I move adoption of the COAB bylaw.
Is there a second? Senator Gordley has moved to adopt the COAB bylaws.
Second.
Okay, there's been a second discussion. Okay, this would be the time if you want to discuss the contents. Mr. Steenson?
I think it should be clear that it's not as drafted by the COCO that subcommittees can contain as members people from the public, the general public, as opposed to just COAB members, either voting or non-voting. And the reason for that is there's a lot of expertise that may not be in the COAB itself. And it doesn't hurt to include and reach out to people who have that expertise to serve on those subcommittees. And it doesn't mean that there's some violation of the settlement agreement by doing that, because there's nothing that prohibits that. The COAB can determine if it wants subcommittees, it can determine the membership. The other point I want to make is the current draft of the bylaws by the COCO would only allow the COAB chair, which is the COCO, and the COCO's designee to issue official statements on behalf of the COAB. And I think that's absolutely counter to the notion that COAB is independent of the COCO or the city or the DOJ. I think that the COAB, with its independence, should be the one deciding what official statements to issue and when to do so. And it shouldn't be up to the COCO whether that happens or not.
Any further discussion? Sorry, Sharon.
So would this be the time to amend both of those sections with the changes? Okay.
I think going back to my Robert's Rules of Order, Senator Norris, if that's a friendly amendment.
The statement from Tom
Yeah,
Steenson?
Let me repeat it. I
Okay.
think I can say it, and I think this would be in line with your motion, which is that the motion to approve the bylaws would be amended to include an amendment to the bylaws that would, and I don't know where it is in the, what position it's under, but I think it's makeup of subcommittees.
143.
Okay, makeup of subcommittees, and that would include, that subcommittees could include members of the public. That would be number one. Number two was to amend that section of the bylaws in which it said that official statements would come from the COCO, and the amendment would be, no, they should come from the COAB as an entity,
The last
if you
page.
will. The official statement should come from the COAB.
I accept those friendly
Okay.
amendments.
Senator Gordley accepts those amendments. Is there a second on
Second.
that? Okay, a second here. All right, is there any further discussion?
You've got Ellen.
I'm sorry,
City.
yes.
I just wanted to point out one thing for the committee about having members of the public be part of your subcommittees, and that is the subcommittees themselves are, depending on how you constitute them, they are also likely public bodies that would be subject to the public meetings and public records laws. I only bring that up because if you have members of the public, then their communications about what they're doing on the subcommittees are public records. So I would just keep that in mind, because I think in general, if you invite members of the public, they would not have an expectation that their communications were public records. So it doesn't mean you can't do it. I just wanted to highlight that as something you might want to consider.
Thank you. Senator Gordley, did you have a question?
This is a fan.
Any further discussion? B?
I have are we going paragraph by paragraph, or are we just
No,
doing
there's
it
been
on the whole?
no, the motion that was made by Senator Gordley was that we approve the bylaws as they were written. Then Mr. Steenson, during the discussion, pointed out two parts that he wanted, that he suggested were inconsistent either with the settlement agreement or should be changed. And Ms. Maxwell gave a friendly amendment that we amend the bylaws, that part of Senator Gordley's motion would include an amendment of those two sections of the bylaws to reflect one, that public members could serve on the subcommittees, and number two, that official statements would come from the COAB, not from the COCO. I think I've stated that accurately.
And then if I could,
Yes, ma'am.
so, the last sentence of the first real paragraph, we have the PPD officer, blah, blah, blah. So I have difficulty with the word minorities for several decades now. And somebody suggested in the community, culturally specific groups. I don't know how anybody feels about that, but when I see minorities, I think subaltern, and I don't like it.
All right, thank you. I'm going to call on Mr. Wolf.
So I just kind of want to help to lead. I just want to, maybe we can focus on the two amendments first, and then if we can further discuss anything not related to those two, just so we can move on.
Well, just to be clear, is that all right with you, Pete? Okay, was there another, Senator Gordley, did you have?
Well, just to quickly address your comment, V, I happen to agree with you. And I think that if we look at language that says members of racial and ethnic populations, that might take care of the.
That's better.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay.
Could we, well, all right.
Sorry, Senator, can you repeat what you just said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it, the last of what you just said.
The concern is about the last sentence and phrasing of that currently says, who are racial and ethnic minorities.
Yes, ma'am.
And the concern is about using the word minorities to reference people.
Okay.
And the suggestion is to replace that with members of racial and ethnic populations. Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? All right. I'll restate the motion and then we'll go around the table and ask you to vote. Aye would be in favor of the motion, nay would be against the motion. And so the motion is to adopt the bylaws. Then there was a friendly amendment that would include changing that section under subcommittees to allow members of the public to serve on the subcommittees. And the second one was under the section about official statements. That would be amended to say that official statements would be those that came from the COAB as an entity. And I think the use of the words members of racial and ethnic populations could be done by an interlineation of Scribner's work, and it doesn't need to be addressed in this motion. I think Senator Gordley agrees with me. All right, we'll start around the table. Signify your vote.
Aye.
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 That was a unanimous vote, so the bylaws are approved. Congratulations to everyone. And we'll, just for the record, we'll reflect that if this is all right with everybody, because for convenience, I'll make those changes and circulate and then post the final draft of the bylaws. Okay? All right. I would like to move us to the question on community surveys and do we need well, let me ask you this. Do we need a break?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break.
No, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5
okay.
minutes.